Smiely Khurana, and I'm bringing you a web series focused on sustainability, wellness, and film. This week's episode, we're talking about how you can go green on a budget on your next film. So, what is sustainability? Sustainability focuses on meeting the needs of the present without compromising the future generations' ability to meet their needs. I called up my friend Jennifer Sandwell, who is a sustainability consultant in the motion picture industry based out of Vancouver, BC. She currently is working with Green Spark Group and offers consulting and training to crew members on how they can make their sets more eco-friendly. I wanted to ask her opinion on what the whole sustainability movement is in our present time. This is what she had to say.
Sustainability, the concept of sustainability has been really something that's been talked about for a few decades now. The concern for the depletion of natural resources and the concern for not being able to, for future generations to have the same resources to be able to survive and live the quality of life that our current and past generations have lived. There's been sort of a movement towards conservation and more mindful living, consumption, and people really thinking more about how they're impacting the earth. And it's been kind of a slow sort of movement. It's now much more recognized with the advent of global warming.
So what has this got to do with film? Well, the motion picture industry is one of the largest waste contributors in the entire world, using up more fossil fuel, energy, paper, and plastic than any other industry combined. On average, film and TV production produce up to 500 metric tons of CO2 per production, which is equivalent to 108 cars driving for a year, according to an industry analyst. An average production can use up to 2 million sheets of paper. And let's not talk about all the set materials, lumber, costumes, food, and props that end up in landfill after a show wraps. What? So I wanted to ask Jennifer more about her job and what she does to help aid productions and crew members to reduce their carbon footprint. And this is what she told me.
The common denominator for every production is that they all create waste and they all use energy. What I do is basically introduce ideas of how we can reduce waste and reduce our reliance on fossil fuels in terms of transportation and power use on set. I think my biggest job really is to be a resource for crew because, they've been doing things forever in kind of the same way. And I think even though technologies have been changing and improving, I think generally a lot of people that work in film would agree that the way that they do things in almost every department is kind of the way they've always done things. So it's just trying to encourage new ways of thinking, doing waste training and giving people information about what the importance of waste training is, how to manage their waste, what is waste, and also, basically doing that like hands-on, like literally standing at the bins and instructing people or making signs. But also, really, I think the biggest part is communicating with everybody and especially the production managers and the heads of department.
As we begin to learn more about climate science and global warming, productions around the world are now taking more steps to reduce their carbon footprint. You can check out sites such as NBC Universal, Disney, Warner Bros., Green Production Guide, etc. to read more about their global efforts in reducing their carbon emissions. However, indie films seem to have this idea that you can't go sustainable on a smaller budget film. But I'm here to tell you that that is false. What if you could reduce your waste with the resources you do have with no extra cost and save money at the end? How, you ask? Well, it's super important to establish goals at the beginning of your prep. What do you want to achieve to go sustainable on your film? Some examples of goals that you can take on is going paperless, reducing plastic, eliminating single-use items, looking into alternate renewable energy, donating any unused items, thrifting or buying secondhand, reducing your meat consumption, not using up as much fuel and not idling, carpooling, and responsibly sorting your waste, having a waste management on set, 3 bins, landfill, recycling, compost. Looking at these goals, thinking quality over quantity, your goal isn't to go 100% zero waste because that's sort of impossible on film sets. When you pick your 2 or 3 goals, have a clear plan and communicate that with your crew on how you managed to do that and why. Some goals that I took on for my films is reducing and eliminating single-use items. This was very successful with my crew as it was a smaller crew and easy to manage. So instead of providing disposable dishes and coffee cups and water bottles, I asked crew to simply bring their own Tupperware and water bottles to set to fill up with food and water. Everybody was super happy to participate because it gave them the time to prep and plan for that. Another goal that I took on was going paperless and utilizing our digital technology and emails. When you pick your 2 or 3 goals, make sure you're recording your progress. How much have you been saving? Where are you lacking? What are the challenges that are coming up? Now, to support my case of indie films going sustainable, I wanted to reach out to a few friends in the indie community that also are leading this cause on their sets. So here's sustainable superstar / indie filmmaker Alyssa Costello, who is the writer and sustainability producer in the short film Zero. This film strived to go zero waste, and it was so cool learning about everything her team accomplished. And she even let me know about a grant she got to support her sustainability cause. Check it out.
I wrote Zero as a way to combine my interest in sustainability and zero waste with my fascination with serial killers. I realized that this was the perfect opportunity to attempt going zero waste, and that I wanted to go all the way and not just, like, oh, let's implement some sustainable practices. Like, I want to attempt to go completely zero waste. If we don't do it, that's okay. I'm not going to be mad at anyone. But it just fit perfectly with the theme as well, because my film is about a zero waste serial killer. It took a number of meetings. I definitely had some people on board that, when I mentioned doing zero waste, like, their eyes go big. So then I decided to not just be the writer of the film. I wanted to jump on board as the sustainability producer. We emitted 0.3 tons of carbon. And then we had carbon offsets to cover the emissions that we did have. And because our emissions were so low, they put into the grid more than we emitted. So we had, over 3 days, 30 people on set, cast and crew, and we only made 1 bag of compost, half a bag of garbage, and 1 bag of recycling. Yeah, cost savings was $258. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible to go zero waste or almost zero waste, definitely lower impact in indie, but it definitely did help that we got a grant from Van City. So right now, Van City Credit Union has a zero waste grant. I think every couple of years they change their focus, but they do have different community grants with different focuses. We were really lucky to receive $7,500 to go towards all the zero waste efforts on our film. Also, I mean, of course, you're familiar that Green Spark Group offers, or I think through Real Green technically, offers 10 hours of free consultation. I wouldn't be able to answer questions to the production designer on certain materials because I don't know. So we had Jennifer Sandoval come on board so that if anyone in any of our areas had questions, they could reach out to her, and if I didn't know the answer, she would know the answer. We actually had a hard time spending it. So we didn't actually need $7,500 because also we had some really lovely offers and deals from the community that wanted to support us. One of the areas was power. Some of our locations didn't have a power source, so we had the portable electric generators on set. We had funding go towards transport. So we were trying to limit the amount of cars on the road. If we were filming somewhere convenient in the city, we encouraged people to transit or walk or bike. But our number one was carpooling. So we had a deal with Moto Car Co-op, and we got a van, and then we tried to carpool as many people into that van. So a little bit of funding went to that. We also had zero waste catering, which was really amazing. So a lot of our funding went to that. Production design for sure. Different materials that our production designer had to buy, or rental fees that we were renting certain things so that it was returned and reused.
How inspiring is that? But wait, there's more. I had the pleasure of connecting with Ilse, an independent filmmaker and the owner of the production company Elementi Media, based out of England. She and her crew have been going sustainable in a few of her films, and she let me know exactly what her crew and her managed to accomplish together. Check it out.
So I feel like the first steps in on sustainable filmmaking happened completely accidentally, because in a weird way, when we are as independent filmmakers, when we're trying to save money, we actually already are taking lots of sustainable steps. Like for all my films, I've always been looking for costumes in secondhand shops, or like just looking for used items, or just borrowing things, and all of those are already sustainable steps instead of buying new things. The same way with, for example, with catering, every time to save money, I've just always tried to cook food at home myself, bring it in like reusable tubs and reusable plates, and then give it to people on set instead of just buying lots of new things. But yeah, it was with my film Quadratura, with the latest project that we finished, that I decided that if I want to live a sustainable lifestyle, I should also bring it to my career and to filmmaking. That decision was also fueled by the fact that I realized how polluting film industry actually is, and how much waste it creates, and also I just realized that not just from the big numbers of big productions in the world, but also just from my own past experiences of, I don't know, all the paper waste from all the scripts and all the random props that you might just buy for this one shot and then never used again and throw away. And I just started thinking about all that I just really don't want that on my film sets. And that's how I decided to do everything that I can to make my film sets as sustainable as possible. Just split it in different sections. And I think the easiest one, as I already mentioned, is costumes and props, just to always look for them in secondhand shops, or even borrow them from somebody who already has this item, because that way not only you're recycling, which is sustainable, but you're also saving lots of money instead of buying lots of new items. And also you can very often find very unique pieces in secondhand shops, because they only have one item at a time, and then that way you can just find something that will really add that unique look to your film. If you can't find something in the secondhand shops, I always try to look for independent artists, and also just ask around my friends, because I know lots of creative people who might be able to create something. So for example, in all of my films lately, I've had lots of paintings in my sets, so I've just been asking lots of friends around and just talk to people who I maybe have met on Instagram if they would like to create a piece of art that could be featured, which again is a very good way to just support an independent artist. Another thing which I think is quite easy to deal with is paper waste, because first of all, I think we are all always print way too much and needed. Like, not everybody needs a call sheet, not everybody needs schedules, and really there's only like one or maybe two people on set who need all those papers. And so many things can be just kept digitally and not even printed at all. And same thing with scripts. I was very careful in my latest projects to know how many scripts to print, and I actually found a sustainable printing company that prints on this recycled paper, and they only use metal binding, so there's no plastic, and it all arrives in a cardboard box. Oh yeah, and then travel is another area, and that's again something I've just always done naturally. It's just the cheapest way often is just to use public transport wherever you go. Or if you have to rent a car or some sort of transport, just get as many people in it as possible instead of getting every person driving their own car. This feature film that we're working with, I actually have a sustainability agent in my team. So she has been helping me to find all these sustainable solutions for different areas. And she created this document where she just described the idea of why we have a green set and how we're going to try to achieve this and what every team member can try to do. So I shared that with everybody, and I mentioned a few messages in like a group chat that I'm going to be doing my best to have a zero waste set. And then another way how we reminded that to people was that every call sheet had a little green tip or a green fact about pollution, or about what I don't know, what kind of difference a swap from a plastic bottle to a stainless steel bottle does.
So it's super important to be communicating these goals ahead of time with your crew and then giving them enough time to plan alternate sustainable methods to doing their jobs and then support them where they need. You're bound to run into some challenges or conflicts, and you're going to have to problem solve on the spot. So some challenges that could come up, actually, let me just ask my friends.
Challenges in transportation, trying to, we had amazing efforts in carpooling with Moto, but there were certain days that, the van wasn't enough, and how many vehicles do we have going places, and people wrapping at different times. Like, that was something I hadn't quite thought of. And then you're sort of doing a comparison. Well, what's more wasteful? That we do multiple trips with the van back and forth so that there's only one vehicle on the road? Or is that worse than maybe someone's got a more efficient vehicle that they're driving so that they can leave whenever they want to leave, that sort of thing? So that was something that I realized while we were on set. Oh, I didn't think about this. I mean, and that being said, we still didn't emit that much from gas, but I still felt like we could have figured that out and been more efficient. It was really amazing that the catering was also completely vegan, but we did have a few people on set that were really upset there was no meat. It's important to limit meat, but to have no meat at all, there were a few people that were really hankering for more than what catering was offering.
Biggest challenge always is with most independent little film productions is financing and budget, and when you already have barely any budget to bring the film together, it's just not really possible to put that much money aside for the sustainable decisions that I would like to. Because as I said, I would have loved to just buy everybody a sustainable, a stainless steel bottle or a cup or something that they can, instead of buying the disposable ones. And same way with catering, we had actually found a company that would bring us food in like cardboard packaging every day and just freshly made food, but then we just couldn't afford it in the end. So lots of people ended up buying like some plastic wrapped sandwiches or whatever for their lunches. And yeah, and I think that's just always the hardest part, that like I would like to do more, but I just can't afford it.
I think the biggest challenge is people are used to doing things the way that they do them, and it's really hard to change behavior. That's very that in any industry, any at home, that's probably even hard, because sustainability still remains sort of like a side thing or an afterthought. It's not something that people are thinking about in the early stages of prep or budgeting or financing their project. So I think what would be so helpful to everybody is if those concepts were actually thought of in the beginning and budgeted for at that stage. Because, if they're already there, you don't have to worry about spending, money or taking it out of your contingency to pay for these extra things, because they're really not extra. Because if you're looking at it from a life cycle perspective, the more that you think about sustainability and efficiency and waste reduction in the beginning, the more money you're going to save in the end.
Even though you run into challenges and conflicts, it's important to remember why you're doing what you're doing. Record your progress, good and bad, and update your crew throughout production and at wrap. Let them know what you accomplished together as a group, because big or small, you can have an impact. And remember, the goal isn't for one person to be perfect, but a million people to be imperfect, to have that larger effect.
If everyone starts to look at how they make their art, no matter what industry it is, that you cannot just have an impact by inspiring or moving people with what your art is, but you can have an impact on people and the planet if you look at making your art more sustainably.
Thank you so much for watching. If this has been helpful for you, or you know someone in the industry that wants to learn more about how they can make their next set more sustainable, please share this video with them. Thank you to everyone that was in this video for your time and wisdom, and feel free to check out links such as Green Production Guide, Real Green, to learn more about what other productions have been doing to go more sustainable, for ideas and inspiration. Here's to a sustainable future. Thanks for watching.